You are welcome to today's live session. So, today we're going to be diving into the story of Ruth and Naomi. First, I would like to read from the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verse 7 to 22. So, and Naomi said unto her two daughters in law, Go, return each to your mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you that ye may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters. While will ye go with me? And there are yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands. Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say, I have hope, if I should have a husband also tonight and should also bear sons, should ye tarry for them till when they are grown? Would you stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieves me much for your sake that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. So, and they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. Ruth held unto her, and she said, Behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her God. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. And Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee, for with you I would go. Where you lodge, I would lodge. Your people shall be my people. Your God shall be my God. Where you die, I shall die, and there I shall be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. Now, when she saw that she was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. So the two went until they came to Bethlehem, and it came to pass. So now let me give you a quick background into this story. So Ruth and Naomi, Ruth is the daughter-in-law, while Naomi is the mother-in-law. So Naomi lost her husband, then she lost her sons. So she became a widow, and her daughter-in-laws also became widows. So after a while, after the mourning and grieving period was over, Ruth asked her daughter, Naomi asked her daughter-in-laws to go back home so they could get married again. But the daughter-in-laws still want to stay with Ruth. So now let me read on. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a mighty man of wealth, and the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. This is my most interesting part of the story. I'll get to it. And Ruth, the Moabitess, said unto Naomi, Let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her harp was so light on a part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was a kindred of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said unto the reapers, The Lord be with you. And they answered him, The Lord bless thee. Now, let me fast forward this story. She fell on her face, she bowed herself to the ground, and said unto him, Why have I found grace in your eyes? Again, I'm going to fast forward to another part of the story. And Boaz said unto her, At mealtime, come thou to me, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat behind the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat, was sufficed, and she left. Now, let's quickly start from. So why I'm going into this story this morning is I was told this story as a child. So in Sunday school, when I used to go to the Catholic church, we break out in groups. So we got told this kind of Christian stories. But because I was a little girl, I couldn't relate with the story of Ruth and Naomi because we were speaking about mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws. I was just maybe 6 or 7 the first time I heard the story of Ruth and Naomi. So when I became a teenager, my mom started telling us the story of Ruth and Naomi again. And I began to wonder, why is Naomi trying to, why are they trying to force themselves on each other? If your husband dies, why can't you go your way? Anyways, now Ruth said to her daughter-in-laws, you guys should go back to your people. I will go back to my own people. In fact, I am too old. I cannot have any sons for you to marry now. Even if I have sons, you guys might be too old to, get married to these sons. Now, let me go straight to the point why I'm here this morning. I just want us to draw some lessons from this Bible story quickly. Now, you don't have to be a Christian again to pick some lessons from the Bible. One of the things that I have always noticed whenever I'm reading Bible stories about strong female characters, there is always this wisdom that we could apply to present day. So number one, Ruth had foresight. Ruth had foresight. So she followed Naomi. Number two, Ruth had empathy. That was why she didn't let her mother-in-law just go on her own. She decided to go with her mother-in-law. Despite the mother-in-law telling her over and over, you need to go back to your people. So number one, we said Ruth had foresight. Number two, I think Ruth was an empath. So now number three, Ruth is not a lazy woman. If Ruth did not go out to the field, she would have not met this rich man. So Ruth was going out to gather after reapers. She was humble. She was not feeling too big. In present day, if we were in present day now, I'm sure by the time some people's husband dies, their mother-in-law can't wait to throw them out of the house, or the people can't even wait to throw their mother-in-laws out of the house. But let us go back to this time. Let us look at how beautiful this relationship between Ruth and Naomi is. I'm sure it was beautiful with Orpah as well, but Orpah had to go back to her people after her mother-in-law kept insisting. Now let's go back to Ruth and her rich dude. Now, when Ruth met Boaz, she knew she was young. Yes, I'm sure she was pretty. But when Boaz spoke to her, she fell to her face in humility and she said, why has Boaz found her worthy? And this part hit me. Reading these stories as a child, all I remember was, your people shall be my people, your God shall be my God. I didn't look at these lessons. So now Ruth is humble to a fault. That was why when she met Boaz, she was so humble and she actually, gave him the respect that's due to him. Now let's come to present day. Girls of present day, people like me, people like yourself. Do we even respect the elders at all? Let's go back to Ruth and her mother-in-law. Look at how much love Ruth had for her mother-in-law. That was why she said she was going to go with her mother-in-law till the end. Now, I'm sure the mother-in-law was also nice to Ruth. So if you're a mother-in-law out there, be nice to your daughter-in-laws. You don't know what will happen tomorrow. Then the daughter-in-laws too. Be nice to your mom-in-laws. Be nice to everybody. You don't know what will happen. So now God blessed Ruth, and Ruth met Boaz. Boaz is unarguably one of the most richest men in that province. So you can imagine how Ruth, she had foresight, then she had the humility, she had empathy, and look at where God took her from and took her to. Even when she followed Ruth, she didn't say, I've been following you, I can't go out to look for food. No, Ruth still went out to the fields. She was gathering behind the harvesters. Again, let's look at present day. Imagine if your mother-in-law said, go to that biscuit factory, go and be gathering the rest of the biscuit so we can eat it as supper. Would you go? A lot of women these days would not go. Sometimes we feel too educated, we feel too pretty, we feel too big, and we feel too woke. We don't listen to elders anymore. Imagine if Ruth was not a very nice person. I'm not saying Ruth would have not gotten another husband, but just look at how easy it became for her. So this morning, I am just so excited to share this story because even if you're not a Christian, guys, take your time to study the Bible. Pick one story every day and just immerse yourself and put yourself in that time period. All I can say from the story of Ruth and Naomi today and Boaz, number one, you need to be loving. If you are going into a family for marriage, don't go with ulterior motives. Don't be greedy. When the husband is not there anymore, you won't love the family anymore. Again, you need to have foresight. Again, you need to be kind. I'm sure Ruth and Naomi were kind to each other. That is why they were together till the end of time. So guys, thank you so much for joining me on today's live. I'm going to go off and come back live again by 12 noon. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode.